We're back. I think this is the fourth time. The fourth time we've gotten together, Chad?
Four.
Number 4. The Quattro. Is that right? How's it going? You're still in Cincinnati?
Still in Cincinnati.
Things are going well?
Snowing yet again. I think it snowed last time we talked.
What? It's snowing?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Hey, speaking of which, I snuck into Toledo last Sunday for the day, little family visit. And I noticed the new sign in Ohio, "Find it here." What exactly is that all about? What happened to the heart of it all?
The heart of it all.
Where is it? What?
No.
Did you know they changed the signs?
I did not know that. It's so bizarre.
The new tagline is, yeah, I'm not sure about the tagline. And it also looked like it was drawn in crayon.
I know the new like Ohio logo at the rest stops looks like it's drawn in crayon.
Yeah. So that's the new thing. So you think, so it's interesting. Nobody, even people in Ohio don't seem to know that this has changed.
Catching on.
Yeah. So Ohio, find it here. And I've shared that with several people and they're like, find what? That's always been the follow-up question. But I guess you can find it here.
Find it here.
You found it here.
Most of the time, Cincinnati doesn't include itself as our own nation city.
In Ohio? Yeah. The Republic of Cincinnati. Do you think Cincinnati would be a good city-state? You think it should just secede not only from Ohio, but maybe from the Union completely?
Could be interesting.
Like Vatican. It should be like the Vatican. Its own like city-state. Singapore. That could be a good motto. It could be the Singapore on the Ohio River. We can discuss that in the next
Bring
pod.
back river trade.
Oh, man. Here we go. River trade. All right. Speaking of trade, we're going to talk about fashion collabs. We got some big ones this week in the world of sports and fashion, jerseys, kits. Do you want to lead off with your discovery?
I can't remember which one was mine.
I noticed that, Stella McCartney in the deal with the Arsenal women's team. Yeah,
that was great. I think your discovery was the best jersey kit sweater, though, out of all of them.
For a friend of the Great North, of the Six, that's what they call Toronto, the Toronto Maple Leafs have done a collab with Justin Bieber on a reversible jersey. It's pretty wild. It's got a smiley face and the leaf, and it's got the traditional Maple Leafs logo. What I think is most intriguing about this collab is that the Maple Leafs, arguably probably one of the most important franchises, certainly in NHL, and probably one of the most viable franchises in North America. You can do some research on that. But they have not won the Stanley Cup since 1967. So will this help them? Will this collab, will this Justin Bieber Maple Leafs collab help them win the Stanley Cup? What do you say, Chad Munitz?
Yes.
You do?
I do.
This
Rabid
year, or
fan base.
Do you see yourself buying the Justin Bieber Toronto Maple Leaf jersey?
I do not.
But this is an interesting, these matchups are, I think they're really fun. They're really great.
I think they're very fun. They're great. I think, we talk a lot about almost everything leads back to good marketing. It's great marketing, but it's great clothing too. Some good designs, Adidas keeps things fresh.
Stella McCartney is at the forefront. She's doing some really interesting things, not using, animal products in her gear, coming out with some really creative stuff. And I think also her going with the women's team first is really interesting, for Adidas to match up with Stella. And I guess the men's team is going to start wearing these leopard print as well. It's interesting. Another collab I enjoyed, I shared with you before we got on the pod, Adidas did this collab with Ajax, which is a soccer team in the Netherlands, around Bob Marley in the song Three Birds, or some connection to the city. And I don't know, it's like a collector's item. It's like the third kit, and they have these special rollouts. It's kind of cool.
Much better than just the NFL Color Rush jerseys.
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, the Color Rush situation. It's interesting that there is pressure on the teams to kind of do some fun stuff. Obviously the University of Oregon is at the forefront. I feel like they've got a new jersey for every time they.
It's almost every game, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're going to see more of this. There's really not much of this going on in baseball. I'm trying to think of other leagues that have kind of embraced this. The NBA is also, I think they've got 4 or 5 jerseys just for the season now.
Yeah. It's a great marketing opportunity, but it's great for the fan base. It's great for collectors. It starts making its way into popular culture of what folks wear.
Yeah, and there's
also
still
on the Stella McCartney, I need to give a shout out to as you know, I love high socks. Get the socks all the way up to the knees. I think her socks were above the knee for the Stella McCartney women's.
Well, Chad, I know you're new to soccer, your fandom. This is the way some soccer players they wear it. They wear it above the knee. So yeah, no, that's a good shout out. Another reason for you to come to soccer. Speaking before we jump to our next topic, I wanted to ask you, since you're such a rabid MLS fan, do you have any idea of the standings?
I don't, but I know that the FC Cincinnati 2-game winning streak. They take the pitch again today in the blustering cold here in Cincinnati. So
yeah, they play Charlotte.
I think they play Charlotte. Yep. Expansion team. So good chance for a third win in a row.
So yeah, they're in eighth place. Yeah, eighth place. DC United is seventh. The top team in the East is the Philadelphia Union. In the Western Conference, LAFC is top of the table. And your favorite team, Real Salt Lake City, is in second. So there we go. That's our MLS wrap-up. Good stuff happening. We're 4 games into the season. It's pretty wild. I guess since we started the pod, that's been the track. All right.
And the Cincinnati DC match, Cincinnati took it.
Yeah.
Didn't we?
I have no idea.
I can't remember.
I think. All right, let's go to our next topic.
All right.
You brought this. You thought this was a good idea. Wes Anderson versus Quentin Tarantino, and you're reading. Tell us the connection. You're reading this great book, which maybe you're going to mention later. But
a great book, which is a wonderful kind of pep talk for Gen X, which we are right smack dab in the middle of. So Chuck Klosterman wrote a book called The 90s. It is really takes you through the entire decade, and my view of his point of view on this is that he's trying to explain to the world why Gen X is by far the greatest generation that's ever lived.
How long? Are we the greatest generation? I don't know. That seems a bit of a stretch. I mean,
so a lot of it is the change of the coming of the internet and how technology has changed everything. Has been more drastic for our generation than any other generation. The generations before us, there was never a change that was so dramatic. And those generations, when they came up to it, they could kind of choose to adapt it or not adapt it. And then the generations after us have to choose. I mean, they have no choice. They were born into this information age. And so we're the only generation that's bridged this gap. That we lived without it, but we are forced to use it and adapt to it.
So we're a bridge generation in the sense that, we remember life without computers being omnipresent, and now this current generation, like your daughter, have no idea what life without. Yeah,
but the generation before us, while they could adapt it, they could also they're old enough to choose heck with it. I'm not going to dive into the metaverse.
Yeah, exactly.
But
like
we have to.
We're straddling that.
It's a great book. It brings back lots of nostalgia of our glory years in the 1990s, but it's made me start thinking of who's the best Gen X director out there.
Yeah, and you brought up Wes Anderson. We just picked 2. We picked Wes and Quentin Tarantino. And my first impression, I didn't even think of those guys in the same bucket. I'm much more of a Wes Anderson fan myself, and I was actually going through some of the films these 2 guys have made. I've seen every Wes Anderson film. I'm a huge fan. I've only seen a handful of films from Quentin Tarantino, and I guess they're the same generation, but they seem totally. I don't know. They don't seem like peers. I mean, Quentin seems like such a Hollywood nerd, whereas Wes seems like this. He's really into film in general. I don't know. And maybe because Wes is living in Europe and, Quentin's is still in LA. I don't know. They just don't strike me being in the same planet.
I think they are both film nerds. I think they both bring out the best in the actors that they have. And they've both got a great core group of actors that they bring.
Yeah.
Focus on dialogue, focus on cinematography, focus on score.
Yeah, the soundtracks are always key. Yeah, the soundtrack's really key. One of my favorite soundtracks, getting back to Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. It's an amazing soundtrack. That's probably the film I've seen the most. I was going through his wiki today, Quentin, and he's written for television, which I found really interesting. He's actually had acting roles. He was in the Golden Girls as an Elvis impersonator. He's currently the voiceover for Super Pumped, that show on HBO about Uber. And there's also, he's possibly written, it's unclear if you get credit for films like Crimson Tide, which is really interesting. This wiki page is suggesting he was part of it, but didn't get a credit. Maybe came in and helped tie it up. Whereas Wes Anderson has only made a handful of films and doesn't really act. He's made some commercials, but he's not as active. He's not out and about. Quentin is really into like being in Hollywood.
Yes,
that's my impression.
Agree, but I do think that getting back to, I think they're the most influential directors of our generation.
And you think they're equal? I mean, they'd probably go 1-2, or it's hard to say.
I think they go 1-2
with Quentin on top.
I would say Quentin on top. And I didn't look at the box office receipts, but I'm guessing he's been more successul financially.
And that's all that matters. And that's all that matters for
the end of the day.
That's all that matters for our generation is box office numbers. He's certainly. I kind of like the idea of Quentin. I think he's only going to direct 10 films. Or something
10 films is what he's saying, and he's out.
Wants to bounce out.
But they both are so thoughtful into the process of making movies, and as well, I am into some of the Marvel and Star Wars movies. It is much more this intellectual property of pushing out the IP and spending as much money as you can and getting many butts in the seats. And these guys are much more, painfully looking at it as an art form.
Yeah, just the way, especially Wes Anderson shoots his films, very symmetrical, and the commitment to set design. And if you ever get in Milan, he worked with the Prada Museum, essentially the Prada Foundation, and he set up a classic kind of Italian bar called Bar Lucy. And he it's like walking into a Wes Anderson set, but you can have a cocktail there and some snacks, and I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of cool stuff, that's just kind of out of the way weird stuff that kind of Wes does. But I can't think of any other directors that are kind of doing that kind of weird stuff like that.
Now, we mentioned, as we talked about finishing up the book with you earlier in the week, that Christopher Nolan has bridged the gap a little bit of more of the art filmmaker, but then also did the Batman trilogy, which was, enormous and kind of kicked off the new superhero work that's out there.
Which Wes has never really done. I mean, maybe he's, I don't know, behind the scenes has worked on those kind of projects, but he seems very content to kind of do his own projects where, we were talking about Nolan and Tenet, which I couldn't even watch. I stopped watching it and I was just like, I have no time for this nonsense. But getting back to like the French Dispatch, I mean, some of these, they're making these films where they're just like, hey man, this may not make any sense, but this is the freaking film I'm going to make. You're going to give me $100 million and we're going to make this film, which is kind of cool.
I think the French Dispatch is Wes Anderson's most Wes Anderson movie by far.
100%. Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
What's your favorite Wes Anderson flick?
I mean, I probably have to go with Rushmore, just because I just love the idea of revolution and, this weird kid trying to, upset the world. And I went to an all-boys Catholic school, so I could kind of relate to like this weird, subculture. And I don't know. I just love that, that kid's involved in like every activity. Bill Murray. That's probably my all-time favorite. Revolution, love, it's everything you need.
I agree with you on that. We're on the same page. Rushmore, by far, it's best.
Yeah, and I would say Darjeeling Limited is probably the next one, where they go to India, because I think India is just such a weird, goofy place. So different than, North America and Europe, and the spiritual journey. And I love trains, so, anytime you can shoot a movie on a train, that's pretty cool. How about you with Quentin Tarantino?
I think the most impactful was Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
But I've actually liked his last two maybe the most. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and The Hateful Eight. Yeah.
I haven't, I would agree with the first two for sure. I haven't seen The Hateful Eight, Django Unchained, Glorious Bastards. I thoroughly enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Great. they're great rides. They're just fun rides too.
Fun rides, killing
Fun
Nazis,
rides.
always a fun ride. And I think there's some
Killing
connections too, right?
Nazis.
There's and these like subtle like Easter eggs, right, between like Inglourious Bastards
Yeah.
and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like there's subtle notes that connect, and I can see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood just being like a kind of a classic slow burn. So many good lines of dialogue, Charles Manson, all that weird stuff. And it's like iconic Hollywood, some of that stuff still like physically exists. It's kind of diners, that kind of look and feel is very, very
Yeah,
Hollywood.
it's amazing. We talked just how both of them do the set design and end up making these movies. And for the most part, a lot of them are still doing practical filmmaking and not as much CGI, but the worlds that they create. I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he created almost all that in natural sets to get that. And same thing that Wes Anderson does. It's just amazing the time they spend on it.
Yeah, and before we go to the next topic, this CGI thing, I don't know if you noticed. So I've been watching Super Pumped. I've been watching We Crashed. Only watching films about or documentaries or whatever episodic shows about failed crazy entrepreneurs. But I've noticed this weird gimmick now, where the directors overlay like text, they overlay Twitter, they overlay the social, and they like. It's just a weird use for me. I don't know. And maybe because I'm between these two generations, I just don't know why they need to feel like they need to show tweets or social but I don't know. It's just like so omnipresent, I guess. It's, they've got to find a way, but it doesn't feel natural to me yet. I don't know. Have you noticed that?
I've noticed that a lot. And I think that this what comes back to us. And we have to adopt this. I a little bit have the two screen experience if I'm watching something and I'm looking up something on my phone, but I'm usually using that experience to dig deeper into what I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'll notice something, I want to look it up, while my daughter's generation will just be watching something and chatting with their friends or playing a game. So they're constantly interacting with two screens.
Yeah, and it's more and more, even like Adam McKay, like the voiceover, the kind of comic book imagery. I don't know, but yeah, maybe it's a generational thing, and Twitter is just so freaking important, or the social aspect and Insta, that these directors feel like they can't ignore it because that is really shaping the narrative, kind of the messaging.
I agree. It's bizarre.
Okay, speaking of bizarre, what are we going to talk about next? We're going to talk about, I don't know if you saw this, but U2, speaking of episodic shows, U2, JJ Abrams is going to do an episodic show. I think it's going to be ready for Netflix. You're a huge JJ Abrams fan.
I am.
I assume.
Yes.
Correctly. I'm a huge U2 fan. What do we think about this? Are we excited?
I'm excited. I think it's great. Gets back to Greatest Generation. Whole episode focused on Gen X. One of the greatest Gen X bands. One of the greatest Gen X directors.
Yeah, so I guess JJ Abrams is our contemporary.
Yeah.
There's been very little details about this, but it looks like it's going to be a scripted series, and working with the Bohemian Rhapsody director. I don't know. It's pretty good. I mean, U2 for me has been a constant. I've been listening to U2 since the freaking late 80s, which is totally insane. I was the other day, I noticed I've been listening to the song from U2 for almost 40 years, which is insane, but I don't know. Exciting to see this happen.
Is it documentary style? Is it
all we got is it's going to be Penn is going to script. It's going to be a series, scripted series. U2 scripted series from JJ Abrams. So I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be like a behind the scenes look about the band's rise. I don't know. Similar to maybe like a King Richard kind of situation about the Venus and Serena story. That's my guess from just the early reports.
It's good. It's Academy Award weekend too. All this movie talk, TV talk.
I think too with I don't know if you had a chance to see the Get Back, the Beatles documentary, but
yeah.
So I think maybe that was such a sensation. I'm sure other bands are like, hey man, we'd love to tell our story too. We might have all this archival footage, but let's put kind of the historical record down. So that could be the connection there too.
Get Back's probably the best thing I watched all of last year.
Yeah, it probably deserves a revisit. I mean, it was, to me, I'm with you, man. It was so impactful and just so boring at the same time, like just how crazy the creative process is. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes it's just sitting there drinking tea and strumming some tunes. And but the alchemy is like just so fantastic.
Yeah, that was the talent that they all had, and them working that together and creating those songs. And I mean, I like the Beatles, but they're probably not even in my top 50 in terms of what I turn on and listen to, and was just so drawn into watching.
Not even in your top 50.
Top 50 now.
Oh my God, that's pretty hard to believe. They too, I mean, they only played for like 9 years, so it's like so wild, like their cultural impact. But
yeah,
not even your top 50. That seems a mistake. So yeah, that'll be good. Looking forward towards that. Our next thing, I was asked the other day. I was at a barbecue and with some friends, and this dude out of the blue said, "Hey, are you a cruiser?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Do you like to do cruises?" I was like, "Obviously not. Like, there's no way I ever want to go on a cruise." But I never heard that expression, "Am I a cruiser?" So this made me thought of you and your fandom of Star Wars. The immersive Star Wars down in Orlando. What do we think about this? $6,000 to immerse yourself in the Star Wars experience.
It's a hard pass on me.
Even for you, you think it's a hard pass?
For me. Oh, I am not a cruiser either. I think it's just a little too much. I have not been to the new Star Wars land at Disney, so I'm excited to go see that. But I think I'll stay at the Contemporary Hotel or something like that, not in the full Star Wars.
Yeah,
hotel.
This experience is basically you're transported physically into like a Star Wars, I guess, spaceship. But you're still wearing cargo shorts and flip flops. But you're presented with other characters from the Star Wars world. In fact, if you've read the article, you can also buy Star Wars gear and dress up like
you essentially are role playing while you're there. You get missions to solve. Yeah, it's and
it's also a 2-screen experience, right? It's also this connecting the virtual and the online and the offline. So I suspect we're going to see more of this too.
I think there is. I think while it's a hard pass on me, and I'm sure on you. Life is all
100%.
It's like about experiences, though. The experiential system is much more important than anything else, and Disney does a great job of figuring that out.
Well, it's crazy for $6,000. I mean, I don't even tell you like how you could spend that money. I mean, you could spend a week in a French chateau in the Alps for a week. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. For me, the immersive experience, the 2-screen, going all in, I think we're probably going to see more of this.
Yes. I think it's a great concept. Just I've gotten too old.
All right. So that's for that. Any other topics you want to bring up before we go to our favorite topic? Anything else you've been watching this week?
I got a lot of good stuff. Actually been listening to a couple good things this week.
All right. Drop some nuggets on me.
So a loyal listener.
Wait, is this for a reading or writing subject, or is this a news? Are you dropping some intel? Okay.
This is what we're reading and writing. We on to that subject? I'm going offline here.
You can only, when these cards show up, that's when you know it's safe to go to the next topic.
All right. So this is reading, watching, and listening.
Reading, watching, and listening, and we'll update our cards. We'll work with the production team. All right. So a loyal listener. Not a family member?
Not a non-family member, loyal podcast listener.
Wow, were you surprised to listen to this pod?
Next time, if he allows me. I don't want to call him out.
It's a male?
A male
in America?
Podcast listener. He currently is not in America.
Wow. Were you surprised that he's listening to the pod?
I was. And so that he enjoyed it, but he said, "Hey, I got a great way to find new music." And it's been fantastic. It's a radio station out of New York called WFMU.
FMU, okay.
WFMU. It's a listener-supported radio station. It's got almost all day long, hour-long segments by different, non-professional DJs that come in and play their playlist.
Non-professionals. We don't know anything about that.
Been fantastic.
Really?
All their archives are online. They're great with having the playlist, being able to see, what's happening, who's playing.
Okay.
As he pointed out, and I found there's a couple shows that get a little unlistenable. There's some pretty crazy noise music segments that a little tough on the ears, but had a good group of garage bands that I've been listening to. Some good.
So how did you
blues
dive in? Are you just listening to it in the background, or have you gone for specific
just
playlists?
listen to the background. Just have it playing while I've been working. And just the live feed. It's been great. And then I've had a couple of good podcasts this week. One of my favorite podcasters from a show called Reply All, he left. He's now, his name's PJ Vogt, and he started Crypto Island. It's a podcast all about cryptocurrency.
Nice.
The first episode was about when the group of crypto investors tried to buy a copy of the Constitution. I don't know if you remember that.
I do. I was part of that, obviously. I was part of the DAO.
So, they created Crypto DAO, and they didn't end up winning the bid, but the Constitution, I think it sold for like $41 million.
Yeah, I did.
And then Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend had a great episode on last week with our friend Tracy Morgan, one of the funniest guys out there in comedy.
So that was good segments you listened to?
So good stuff. That's what I've been doing. What have you done this week?
I haven't done anything. Before we go, I got this great book, the Wes Anderson collection.
Oh, wow.
It's fantastic. It's a behind the scenes, a bunch of cool photos. It just goes up to Moonrise Kingdom. It's done independent of Wes Anderson, maybe in collaboration, but just these great kind of cool photos. I don't know. Really crazy geekdom if you want to get deep into the Wes Anderson world. Here's our boy, Rushmore. Good stuff. So this book's from it's almost a decade old now. It's from 2013, but if you want to geek out on the Wes Anderson world, it's a cool coffee table book. One of the pods I've been listening to, it's been kind of fun. It's these, I say kids. I mean, I have no idea how old they are, but it's called Non-Investment Advice. And, they're just it's been helpful because they're into the whole crypto thing. They don't take it too seriously. They're into business. And I don't know. They have a lot of fun about it. These guys are probably, I actually have no idea they're certainly not from our generation. I feel like they're younger. But it's been a fun little pod, not investment advice. All they talk about is business. And, the whole tagline is this isn't investment advice, but here's what's going on. But they're really trying to connect, business technology, a lot of stuff too around memes, all that kind of goofy stuff, just kind of like the internet world. And I don't know, I've really been enjoying that pod and been listening to that. So it's been good.
That sounds great.
And the other thing, I guess, is the Formula One season is back. I'm in a fantasy league, which is pretty wild for me. But Formula One fantasy league, not too hard. Only 20 racers, so you don't have to. It's much easier than, say, the MLB fantasy league. But we have a race today, Saudi Arabia. We're 12 miles away. There was some kind of weird possible terrorist attack at one of the oil refineries. So the racers actually today decided they would go ahead, even though the Middle East is unstable once again. But so that's all I got, man. That's what I've been up to.
Enjoying the cherry blossoms and.
Yeah, it's good. It's a little cold here. I think we've escaped I think the cherry blossoms peaked yesterday, so it's a slow transition to kind of normal spring. But
it's a great DC Cincinnati connection. Governor or President Taft bringing the cherry blossoms over.
Oh, is that the connection? There's another Ohio connection.
Yep.
Yeah, because there was actually, I think, 1910, right? So before kind of a crazy conflicts, but the Japanese gifted them to us.
Yes.
Everybody should come see them. The key, though, is to go early in the morning before the touristas show up. So that's the pro tip. If you want to go, you want to see them at sunrise. Not as many people there. All right, Chad. Another good pod, buddy. These are good recommendations. I'm glad we have loyal listeners. Pretty wild. Maybe we can send this guy a gift card to Arby's or his favorite Jamba Juice for listening. I don't know. I'm not above enticing our listeners. Payola with gifts.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy.
Good
See you soon, man.
Thanks.